Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at Sprinkled with Glitter. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing this holiday card which features products that you can use year-round, and it is a takeoff of a project that I created for the Pinkfresh Studio Craft Hour with Jeff Lindbergh a little while back. It was a Halloween card, you can see that here, but it uses the exact same products, and I wanted to show you how you can take these year-round card making products and create a very beautiful holiday project. Now for this project, I am using the Pinkfresh Studio Diamond Tile background, the Dainty Blossoms die set, and the Leah's Ornate Uppercase Alphabet die set. These are all from Pinkfresh Studio, and they're all products that you can use year-round. And I'm starting out by inking up my background stamp using some black ink, and I'm taking some Neenah Solar White Heavyweight cardstock that's a little bit larger than my background stamp, and I'm placing that right over my stamp that is face up on my work surface, rubbing all over the back of that to transfer the ink, and you can see I have a beautifully stamped background. Now the reason I took a piece that was larger than what I need is that I can use that other stamped area for another card project. So once I die cut my rectangle from this, I will have some extra kind of pattern paper that I can use on another project. Now, once I have that stamped, I'm going to take the rectangles with the stitched diagonal edging from Pinkfresh Studio, and I'm going to die cut a panel from that cardstock. And I'm going to use that same white cardstock to die cut my word joy, as well as several of the vines and leaves from the Dainty Blossoms die set. Now these alphabet die sets, there are a few from Pinkfresh Studio. The Leah's Ornate Uppercase is what I'm using today, but there is also a lowercase version, as well as Heather's Uppercase and Heather's Lowercase. They die cut not only the letter itself, but a beautiful thin outline as well. But because all of these dies are kind of on the daintier side, I found that I got a better die cut when I used a metal shim in my die cutting sandwich. So I just placed my dies face down onto my cardstock on my plastic cutting plate. Then I added my metal shim on top of the dies and the rest of my plates and ran that through my die cutting machine, and I got beautiful die cut images. Now the other really cool thing about this card is that for the most part, other than this glitter cardstock, I am using all white cardstock. I'm going to do some ink blending to add some colors, but you don't need a whole lot of different colors of cardstocks to create this project. Now, as I mentioned, I am using this gold glitter cardstock for a little bit of sparkle because, I mean, what is Christmas without some sparkle? But for the most part, I'm using mainly white cardstock. You could definitely substitute this glitter cardstock with your own handmade glitter cardstock, or you could color it in with a gold metallic pin instead of using a gold glitter cardstock. But I have this on hand all the time, and I have recently rediscovered my love for gold glitter cardstock. So I'm using it on my project today. So overall, I think I cut the white cardstock with the vine and leaf kind of dies about 4 times, and then just once from the glitter cardstock. And now I'm kind of just separating all the pieces that I need. So for the white die cuts, I only need the inner part. And for the gold glitter die cuts, I only need the outer frame part. So I can separate those and set the pieces that I didn't use on this card project aside for another card project. Now, in order to add some color to all of these white die cut images, I am going to do a little bit of ink blending with a blending brush. So I know you're seeing candy apple in the top of the screen right now, but that is not the color I'm using. I'm actually using Berrylicious to blend over these letters, and I'm using a waffle flower mini media mat to do my ink blending on. You could use whatever surface. You could even use some scrap paper if you wanted to. This cleans up really easily, so I really like it, but it does stain with some of these darker red inks, so just keep that in mind. Now I started out with kind of a light layer of ink over the entire letter, and I realized I was blending my O upside down. And then I'm going back and I'm intensifying the ink color along the bottom of these die cut letters so that I get kind of an ombre effect. Now, rather than try to just build up my color super intense on the bottom from the get-go, I just kind of did this in layers. And then there were instances where I wanted a lot of ink, and I kind of tapped the bottom of the letter with my blending brush, which you kind of see me doing here, just to get even more intense ink just along the bottom of these die-cut letters. Now, once I have those blended, I'm going to set those aside, and I'm going to bring in my little leaf die cuts here, or branch die cuts, and I'm going to do some ink blending. Now, I love a Christmas palette with some red and a little bit of pink and a couple of different shades of green. So I did do a couple of these vines in some Ballet slipper ink from Pinkfresh Studio. And the rest of the vines I'm going to blend in Olive from Pinkfresh Studio and Evergreen from Pinkfresh Studio. So it gives me a variation in my green tones, kind of gives me that more kind of piney, bluey green with the Evergreen, and this really bright green, kind of more on the yellow side with the olive color. Now, if you wanted even more variations of green, you could bring in a third color of green. I think you cannot go wrong with green at Christmas time, especially when you're talking about leaves and branches, right? So you could bring in even a third color of green, but I really love the way that this evergreen and this olive kind of play off of each other for a Christmas palette. And once again, to intensify the ink on the ends of some of these die cuts, I'm tapping my brush over the end. It doesn't have to be perfect. They're going to kind of dry back and smooth out as the ink kind of absorbs into the paper. So I get really great results with an ink blending brush and this Pinkfresh Studio ink. Now, I am creating my own sentiment with several letters here, and I thought the easiest way to do this would be to just adhere this to a strip of vellum, and that's going to give me a place to kind of contain my letters, make it easy to pick up and kind of move around the card to figure out what I want. And I am just placing that vellum over my grid mat so I can make sure I'm lining up the letters along the same line on the bottom and the top. And I am adhering these onto this vellum using my Zig two-way glue pen. So you can see I have those all lined up there. And then I'm going to take the outline that this die creates, and I'm going to adhere that as a frame around each of these letters. And don't forget that the O has not only the outer frame, but the inner frame as well. And this gives these letters so much sparkle with just that tiny bit of glitter cardstock. I mean, it makes it just shine like the sun. So I used that same two-way glue pen to add glue to the back of these frames and just placed them around the letters that I had already placed on my cardstock. And I'm just using a piece of scrap cardstock to keep my work area clean. Now, my original card sketch has this going vertically, but my friend Jeff Lindbergh, when he recreated my Boo card, he did it horizontally. And so I thought that was a great idea too. So if you prefer a horizontal orientation, you could definitely flip this card and make it horizontal like Jeff did. Now, I decided I had a little too much vellum around the edges of this, so I'm just taking this over to my trimmer and trimming it down. And because that Y sticks up pretty far on the outer right edge, I'm going to take my trimmer and cut across the top of where the J and the O are. And then when my trimmer gets to that tail of the Y, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to use my scissors to fussy cut around the upper edge of that Y. It just allows me to trim off more of the vellum along the bulk of the sentiment, but keep that Y intact. And you're going to see I'm just kind of trimming around it there to kind of just clean it up a little bit. Now, I also used my scissors to create a banner end on the left side of this strip here. So I just cut a little slit in the center of my vellum and cut from each corner to that center slit. Now, I flipped this over and I added some foam adhesive behind the letters. When I'm using vellum, the best way to adhere it is to find places to hide your adhesive. It works like a charm. And I removed the backer from that foam adhesive, and I'm just placing my various vines here behind that joy, kind of coming out like it's a big Christmas wreath spray floral arrangement type thing. And I'm going to mix the greens and the glitter and the pink all in there together, kind of where it's coming out I'm making sure that I'm kind of varying the amount of each vine that's showing. So there's some shorter ones and some longer ones. I'm varying the actual vines that I'm using. There's one with kind of a really loopy type leaf and one with more pointed type leaf. So I'm kind of mixing those up. And I'm positioning them to where they come out from both the top and the bottom, kind of angling some of them. I'm not keeping them all like straight up and down. I'm allowing them to be very free and kind of almost wild. And I think it creates just a fun look. Now, once I have all of those positioned on the back of this kind of vellum sentiment strip that I've created, I am going to flip it over and I'm going to add another layer of foam adhesive to where those vines and leaves are just trapped between two layers of foam adhesive. Now, when I was playing with this, I was like, oh my gosh, it looks really beautiful on a plain white card base as well. So you are going to see that I created a second card using this exact same kind of grouping here, but instead of using that stamped patterned background, I just put it on a plain white card base. And that you will see in the images at the end of this video. Now I positioned my sentiment there, and now I am using some foam adhesive to place this card front onto a card base. And I used some Essentials by Ellen linen cardstock to create my card base to add a little more texture to this card. And when I was looking at it, I loved it, but I felt like it needed one more little thing. So I took a couple more of those vines that I had blended with the Evergreen ink, and I glued them together to kind of create one more little spray here. I trimmed it down, and then I very carefully lifted the lower right-hand corner of my O. I'm going to use my scissor blade to kind of slide it between the vellum and this die cut image, and I just slid that in there and glued it in place. And that was exactly what my little Christmas loving heart was wanting to finish off this card. Yes, I do love Christmas. And what is Christmas without a few Christmas jewels? So I'm using the Pinkfresh Studio crystals to finish off my card project, and I just adhered those down using a little bit of glossy accents. So that finishes off my holiday card featuring non-holiday card making products. I bet you have something in your stash that's very similar to these products that you could recreate this card with. And as I mentioned before, I created a Halloween version of this card as well. And I will have photos of that over on my blog so you can check that out. And here is a look at the second card that I created on that plain white background. This is actually a mini slimline card. So it measures 3.5 inches by 6 inches, and I think it is a beautiful version as well. As always, I will have links to the featured products used in these projects in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure to check there. Or you can head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. I will have that linked in the description as well. Over there, I'll have more still shots, more information, a complete list of supplies, as well as some images of the Halloween version of this card. As always, thanks for stopping by and hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here on my YouTube channel so you won't miss any of my paper crafting and card making video tutorials. And if you enjoyed it, I'd really love if you shared it with a friend that you think would enjoy this video as well. Thanks again for watching. I'm so glad you're here, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the very end. You know, if you've made it this far, you are one of my favorites. To subscribe to my channel, go ahead and click the button on the left side of the screen. And here's a couple more video tutorials I thought you might enjoy.